Welcome, everyone. We'll be starting shortly. If you already have a question written down on your card, if you hold it up, Steve or Craig will come and get it from you, and we can start working on those. And the video behind me is, this was not intended for this purpose, but one of our members took this video for his spouse, so that because she couldn't be there, and then I said, hey, I understand you have some video. So it was not intended to be, probably won't be listed tonight in the Academy Awards as best documentary, but we're working on the soundtrack, so check us out next year. But all kidding aside, just to give you for those of you who haven't been there, just to give you a sense of what we're talking about. I know I need to see something in a concrete way to be able to think about it. So, well, since I've started, why don't I start? Welcome. Wasn't that an amazing worship service this morning for those of you? We have so many gifted musicians in our midst, and all the choirs and the handbells, and Tony and Andrea and Tomas and Alex, just wonderful. And I know that I felt very fed by that. I hope you did too. And hello to those watching online. Tony is going to keep track of comments and questions in the chat, and we're collecting your written questions, and I'll call for those periodically. And that just allows us to kind of sort them in a way that makes sense and avoid duplication. So just to remind us that when we began this iteration of the stay-go conversation coming out of the pandemic shutdown, we agreed that we would keep open all the possibilities for as long as we could. And so what we're kind of left with is Do we sell and move someplace else? Or do we find a partner or partners that would develop part of our property so that we can stay at this location? We've pretty much ruled out staying and doing nothing because it's not really sustainable financially, and we've gone through those numbers before. So as part of that process, we agreed that when something comes along, a property comes along that we think it has some possibilities, that we would look at it and we would bring it to the congregation. So we'll kind of go through what we think about this particular offering and then some of the steps. You may have questions that we cannot answer today, and one of my promises is to you, if I don't know the answer, I will not make up an answer. And none of us will do that. We won't make up the answer. We'll say we don't know yet, but we know how to find out. So it may be that we will leave with some questions that we can't yet answer, but we will capture them. So that's part of the purpose of this today. Dave Hunt, who is the chair of our Sustainable Future team, could not be with us today, but he did send us these beautiful slides, so he is with us visually and in the way his mind works. And he's done a wonderful job of just kind of summarizing where we are. So next slide, please. So why are we here today? We have a broker who's out there kind of watching the market, and he brought to our attention this LDS Mormon church that has come up for sale in La Mesa. He knew that that was a bit to the east of where we had intended to look, but he thought we should take a look at it, and we did. Has some potential, and so we're bringing that to you. We'll talk about the options that we see and what the timeline would be for that. We'll hear your questions and thoughts, and we'll talk about next steps. What we won't be doing today is a lot of back and forth. It'll be more receiving questions, concerns, comments. You can see that there's already a lot to sift through, and I'm going to need help sifting through them. So let's move on to the next slide. So this is a picture of the property that we have been watching on the video. It sits on just under 3.5 acres in La Mesa. My Google map said it was 8.3 miles from this campus. And one of the questions that came up right away, what about the Santee Church? They're actually only 6.8 miles away from this church. That could be a concern. Are we encroaching on their territory? When I saw that, I called that minister, Casey, and told her that we were looking at a property that would make us closer neighbors to her, and her response was, "Oh, great, then we could really collaborate." I thought that was a wonderful response. And when we had this open house that many of us went to, about 50 of us saw it this past Thursday, I invited her, and she came, and she looked at it, and she, was very encouraging. So I don't think that is a barrier, but we'll certainly talk more about that. Next slide, please. So this gives you the rough location. So it's about 10 miles, 16 minutes from here. That will vary, of course, by time of day and traffic. One of the handouts that was available when you came in, and I thank Craig and his husband John for putting this together, we did an updated survey of where folks in this congregation live. And so we're actually a bit more scattered than we were when we did this 5 or 6 years ago, but it gives you an idea of the concentration of folks. So that might be something that we want to reference and talk about. Next slide. So basically we have two choices, and there might be a 2A or choice. One is to submit a letter of interest, which is non-binding, right? So that just means we are showing you proof of our ability to pay this price and that we are interested. Without that, we won't be considered at all. We'd have to come up with a way to finance it. And then we'd have to decide if we want to submit a binding offer, or we could pass on it. So those are kind of the two, Roman numeral letter 1 and 2 choices. Next slide. we would have a viable future church home to move to. Another possibility, this is kind of the 2A, is if we redevelop this campus in any significant way, it will be very disruptive. If any of you have lived through even a small home construction project, this would be several months, maybe a year of demolition and digging and all that. Plus the hospital is doing a lot of construction. So it may be that during that period of time, we would want to go somewhere else. And so purchasing this would save us renting something for that period of time. If we purchase this building, we could get rental income until we decide if it's going to be where we go or not. And we certainly could sell it at a later time when we're sure that we no longer need it. I would think at the very least we would break even. If you consider the rent we would save, that would be a net gain. I don't know about the short-term market, if it would make sense if we were going to turn it around inside of 5 years. But certainly I don't think we would lose money on it. But smarter people than I people more knowledgeable in that area than I will speak to that. What's next? So if we decide to go forward with considering this, keeping it as an option, we would have to submit an LOI this coming week. And then over the next 3 to 5 weeks, we would work on the financing, and that would include running the numbers for ownership versus rental, and we would prepare the congregation for the purchase decision. And then down the road, 4 to 5 weeks, there would be a congregational meeting to discuss and vote on that. Craig, I am going to need your help kind of going through these to kind of sift through them. And Steve can help. I would love to, how many of you actually went to this place this past week? Are there 1 or 2 of you who would like to just give your impressions? And I would say, let's start with the positive things, and then second, go to some of the challenges, if that's okay. So, this handheld, this was Tony's mic this morning, there we go. Rose, I'm going to come to you. And so if you could tell us what you noticed and what you thought was positive about the place, and we'll stick with that, get 1 or 2 more people, and then we'll come back to challenges.
The church has been very well maintained. It had a lot of parking. Oh, sorry. The church is very well maintained. It has a lot of parking. It has a lot of grounds around it where we could move the things we love. I got a copy of this early where we live. Anybody who lives east of the 15 would find that a much closer church. So that's something to consider. I would say put in a few more windows. Yeah, but I liked it.
All right, 1 or 2 more people that, I'll come to you, Everett. Our filmmaker.
I didn't mean to make you all seasick. Sorry about that. Some of the nice things, it felt, and I'm curious about the numbers here, it felt like there was a lot more like classroom and meeting space, or at least was all next to each other. So there were a lot of rooms that could be used for meetings or RE or something like that. That seemed very positive. Despite the number of windows, to me it felt kind of, I did not feel so enclosed. It's a brick building, 1 story, but I was not kind of feeling like I'm trapped somewhere. It felt kind of open to me, which I thought was a nice feeling.
I'm going to go up to the back. Lauren?
I've got notes. So the positive things is there's a stage in the gymnasium, which the gymnasium can be used for like a social hour. The stage could be used for Front Street productions. There would be room in the gymnasium on the sides for art, like we have in Bard Hall currently. and there's lots of classroom space.
Great, thank you so much. I will second that it was very well maintained. The building was built in '75, and so it is dated, but it is in pristine condition. I was thinking, wow, this is what's possible when you really care for a building. The carpeting is in good shape. There's no water damage in the ceilings. It was very well maintained. Did you want to add something, or?
Just one little thing. The pews are very comfortable.
I'll come to you, and then I'm going to move to challenges.
It's very close to the freeway, and it's a beautiful park half a block away. It's up on a hill. It feels very serene up there. It's in a beautiful neighborhood of La Mesa, and just very well kept, as everyone has said. But I think we all live everywhere, so wherever we go, we'll be together. So,
Thank you. And yes, there was a sense of, it's all one building, so the classrooms, and there could be a music room. It's very contained. I think the questions that I have here will get us to some of the concerns, but of those who visited, is there anything that somebody wants to lift up as a question or a concern? I'm going to come to you, Lauren, since you took notes.
I think the biggest concern is how would people get there without driving? It's not really next to a bus stop. There aren't currently any single-stall, gender-neutral bathrooms. And the stage area is not accessible currently. And I think that neither is the, what do you call it? The chancel. But I think the chancel would be easier to make accessible than the stage.
Other questions or concerns from people who visited? What about the organ? We'll come back to that. I'm going to stick with people that have seen the space, and then I'll answer that question.
My concern would be for anybody who has a meeting that happens in the afternoon or evening, getting there, the traffic.
So location related. Okay.
One deficit I saw that looks quite remedial, I think of our patio as a very important space in this church. There is no such animal there. There is space. There are many possibilities on that property, or just adjacent to the building. It would not be difficult to create a patio.
One question I will answer right away. There will definitely be other opportunities to look at the space. So we will set that up as soon as we can. And right, that's one of the questions on the card. So here we go. So one question is there heating and AC? Yes, there is. How much room would the preschool need, and will there be room for them? So that would be a conversation. I'm not exactly sure. We might have to talk with them about building something. There's certainly plenty of room to build something. I will say that we let the director know that we were considering this, and she said, gosh, a lot of our parents and teachers live in that East County. So location-wise, the preschool, I was worried that they would say, yeah, we're not going with you. They would want to come with us, so we'd have to figure that out. Okay, let's see. Another visit. In the survey we took, what proportion responded that they would consider moving? So the survey that we conducted last year, 73% of us said that they would be open to either option of staying and sharing or moving. So that's why we felt empowered to continue holding open this question of possibly moving. If we don't know whether we will redevelop this property or the meeting hall, why are we considering buying a church now? So why are we considering buying a church now? So there's kind of two options. If we decide to go forward with this, would it be the church that you would move to, in which case we would just sell this campus and they would redevelop it based on what they want to build. If we decide that this would be a temporary home, then we would have a little more freedom to redevelop this property and know that we would have a place to be while that's happening. So I hope that addresses that question. How would temporary departure from Hillcrest work money-wise? Yeah, those are things we would have to work out, the timing, because developers, will get a bunch of money for this, but will it come in time for this? We might have to do some financing in the interim. And so where would we get the money from? So that is under development. Craig, do you want to speak to that, or just would you say the same thing for me, that we would have a plan for that? So question about the organ. There is an organ there. The realtor wasn't sure if they would want to take their organ with them or if it would be part of the deal. So that would be something to negotiate. This organ feels a little large for that space. So again, if we're coming back, we wouldn't move the organ. But that would be one of the many decisions that we would have to make. That would be one of the many decisions we would have to make. Similarly with transportation. Yeah, it's about 1.25 miles from the nearest bus stop. It would not be an easy thing by public transportation. I would say if we decided to do this as a temporary move, or at least for some period of time, that we would consider a shuttle bus or some kind of process where we work really hard to make it possible for our folks to continue to get to us. So organized carpools and/or, the Christians have shuttle buses, we could have a bus. I just think if we consider that part of the cost, right, to make sure that we stay together. So I think that would be a priority. One of the things that we will have to do is identify what is it that's most important to us. Certainly keeping our folks with us would be important. How many meeting rooms are there? I don't know the answer to that. I'm sure it's available. It's probably part of the plan. Question, what is the benefits of fixing our Hillcrest campus while not staying there? How much would it cost and how long would it take? Those are really big questions to answer. It depends on how extensive we want the renovations to be. I think we're getting close to a point where we should do some dreaming, and maybe we should set aside some time where we all there are no wrong answers and no questions that are too ridiculous, where we consider what would we build if we were starting from scratch? Because if we knew we had a place to go to, we could more or less start from scratch. And how much we could spend depends a lot on how much we receive as an offer. So those are questions to be considered, and I think we have some more. Do you want to jump in here?
That's okay.
Okay. I'm doing fine. All right. How much may we alter, add to the La Mesa property, especially in the interior? Okay. So one of the things that appeals to me about this is that it's in many ways just about move-in ready, except we would need to add, I would say, at least 2 bathrooms. There aren't enough stalls, and they met the code for 1975, but they would not meet our code for ADA compliance now, and it wouldn't meet our values now. So that's probably the biggest expense that we would need to make right up front if we were going to move there for any length of time. The chancel could be enlarged. Robbie would like to see it enlarged to hold a larger piano, but it holds an organ console and a small, I guess a baby grand now. Steve, you want to add something there?
Yeah, question about how much can we add? It's zoned for a church.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand the question. How much could we add? So it's zoned for a church. There's 3.5 acres. We're well within, we just have certain frontage that we'd have to allow. So there's room to grow, absolutely. And if you saw, there's like this sweeping front lawn. That could become something else with native plantings and things like that. It could also be a place where we gather. But I thought the question was more, how much do we have to do in order to move in? And in that case, I would say just the bathrooms and add some accessibility to the chancel. But we could do more. I think to make it feel more like us, there's some aesthetic things that we could do, and that could be done by a team. Comparative square footage of office and classroom space. I don't know that information, and I'm sure it's available in the schematic. You have a question that you didn't write down, or?
Yeah, just an information point. If
I need to use this.
If you need mass transit, the closest you can get is 1.3 miles from it.
So I said about 1.25 miles, 1.3 miles. Yes, so it's a ways. So that's why we would need a shuttle. Are you giving me questions? Thank you. What is our selling price? We don't really have a selling price. We're waiting for offers. We are close to receiving an offer from a developer who wants to build something, either build the whole campus if we sell the whole campus, or build something around us, and we're waiting for that offer. So we don't have a price. We have a sense of, we need more than we've been offered so far. I know that. Do we know how many congregants use public transportation to come to church? That's an excellent question, and we should absolutely get that data. Maybe we could add it to the chart, Craig, that John made, something about how people get here. I think that over the years, fewer people walk to church, as many of us have moved out of the neighborhood, even if we've stayed in kind of what we consider the downtown area. But okay, I already got to that one. How much can we alter? What is the zip code? I'm sorry, can't read this. What is the address and zip code of the new place, maybe? That should be on that slide that Dave gave us. Oh, the address is 5555 Aztec Drive, and I guess you could look it up that way. So questions about how we would finance this. That is something that we would be, working on right away. Once we know we are developing here. A point that, is this an interim place or a permanent move, is kind of its own topic. And that, when we went to look at it, when it came to us, we were thinking, could we move there? And so we went with that in mind. And then when we considered the asking price, it occurred to us that maybe as part of this whole project, we could think of this as a temporary move. And so the fourth option is we go, but we come back, which, that has a lot of appeal. Okay, why is it being sold? Like a lot of faith communities, there's some consolidation going on. And the broker that showed it to us is the selling broker, so he may have been being circumspect. He didn't say exactly, but I suspect that, attendance is down, and because they have a more centralized authority, the folks in Salt Lake City decide where there shall be a church. So even if the people there love it, and I will tell you, when you walk into this building and you approach the grounds, it feels like it has been loved. And that, that certainly appeals to me. There's a kitchen with Formica countertops that, you might change if you were buying it to flip it or whatever, but they are in very good shape. And I think the bones are in good shape. Certainly there are things that we will discover, and part of this process would include the due diligence analysis that we would do of all the things that you do when you consider buying a property. The zip code is 91942. Okay, why is it being sold? If sold and moved, how much surplus might we have left over for beautification and community outreach? You mean beautification of that space and community outreach there? Is that what you mean? Yeah, I mean, those are the big questions. How much do we have to, there's an asking price. The broker thinks it will go above that. Are you raising your hand because you want to speak to it? 1 second.
The asking price is $5.8 million. Broker thinks we can get it for a little bit more than that. We would need to sell this place for quite a bit more because we need to build our endowment in order to replace at least our parking lot income. So we need on the order of 20 to 30 million to make this work. But we don't have 20 to 30 million, but we don't have any real offers.
So we would not do it if we couldn't make it work financially. And, we're confident that we could make it work if there were interest in that. Someone online asked a question about Summit. That's the church in Santee. Specifically, would they like to merge with us? I would say the answer to that is no. They like us fine. But, they love their space and they love their community and the vibe they have going there. And I don't think they're interested in a merger. But that initial response of, wow, then we could collaborate, I think there is great interest in feeling more connected as part of this beloved community.
And to address that, what came to mind for me was the city of Pasadena, where there is a large church, neighborhood church, and a small church, troop church, which are within just a couple miles of each other, but they have distinct identities, and the people who are in each like being in each. So I think that could be a model for what would happen if we moved there.
Yes. Oh. Thanks, I didn't see your hand.
So just in terms of process, I started thinking about this from stay or go, and then this other 2A came up. And it seems to me, what I was trying to say in that note about it should be looked at separately, like if we knew I can't support going there as far as permanent in terms of location, but if we are looking at interim, wouldn't we first want to know whether we're redeveloping here and then look for options about interim? I mean, to me, that's a separate, there might be millions of options of a synagogue or other places we could meet temporarily rather than looking there, unless that's where we want to go, to me.
Okay, so, I'm sure that opinion is held by many. I will tell you there are not millions of options. They're not even, I've been here about 4 years. This is the second option that I have seen that seems possible. The other one that seemed possible was gone within a couple days. And so we said, all right, we've got to jump on this if we want to keep it as a possibility. And I just want to say, I'll come to you. I just want to say I really appreciate that people are listening and holding. I like to say, let's love any idea for at least 5 minutes before we tear it down. And I think we're modeling that quite well. And I think with some trepidation, I'm going to say, I think we can open the floor a bit now for general comments and questions.
I'm wondering about the age of it, being built in 1975, and are there people who know what the regulations were regarding asbestos at that point, regarding lead paint?
I was going to say, Andy was there, and we'll have some expert advice about that. I'm walking toward you. Here we go.
Well, California led the country in adopting regulations on lead and asbestos and several other things back in the 70s. So we had the rest of the country sort of follow along since we're such a big part of the market. But the answer to the question is we would have to do a survey before we got too deep into it. There's nothing's peeling right now, nothing's falling out of the ceilings and so forth. So it doesn't look like there is any degradation of the environment. One of the worst things to happen is if the dirt had lead paint in it. It'd be pretty hard to deal with.
We don't think that's the case.
No, it looks clean.
So that would, be a deal breaker. That would be something that would undo. Did you have a comment about that or a question? Dave, do you want to weigh in here at all? I'm putting you on the spot, but just introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Dave. I'm helping to volunteer with the committee. I'm an architect. Basically, the mid-'70s is when California changed most of their laws regarding seismic upgrades, lead, a lot of those types of things. So this is right on the cusp of it. It was probably permitted before, so it's very likely that there will be some of these materials, but this building is even older, so I think, that's a similar situation. Other than the Welcome Center, what we're currently in and everything there would have the same issues.
And those things become an issue more when you do demolition, right? So that's part of the issue, and it will be an issue for us here as well.
I was just kind of curious with kind of the growth of our church and also the impending kind of collapse in terms of the 2 years financially speaking. It's like moving to a new location, having access to younger families, having access to a a stage that allows us to have spaces where people can have things. I'm just curious, my question was about how much surplus. Like if there was enough of a surplus where we'd be able to support, local people, even local kids coming in and playing basketball after school, having kind of that kind of spaces. So my overall question is kind of the distinction between beautifying and saving a space to go visit versus going and finding a space to find a new home to build up our community from where it is to keeping it growing. I guess there wasn't really a question there, sorry.
No, but you have identified some really important issues.
Sorry, I just wanted to address that first part because I was walking through looking specifically for like children and families and like young. I have to say I was excited by the space. I never thought I'd be a person who would want a gym in their space. But like then once I saw it had a gym, was super exciting. It has a stage. There are also just factors like that it's all in one hallway contained that I think as an educator makes it so much safer and easier to manage groups of children than sending them across a patio where, it has at least one room where there is a like kindergarten child-sized toilet in there. So like we don't have that now. We have to send the kids outside the rooms down the hallway to a grown-up bathroom. It's challenging. So there are benefits, I think. I don't know about the demographics of like the neighborhood if we would attract more of that, but I think the space would support it in certainly a different way than here, and one that I personally thought would have some advantages.
And just one of the questions raised here is kind of about the vibe of the area. I mean, it definitely feels more suburban, more middle class, and is that where we see ourselves, where we want to be? And would our values be welcome there? Would it be politically aligned with us? I mean, those are questions.
I'm wondering if those 3.5 acres on the property on Aztec have the potential to be developed.
And when you say developed, you mean like for our use or to like have housing or, yeah. I don't know what the zoning would be. Certainly we could add on for our use. I think that would be a separate question if, in terms of what the neighborhood would welcome. So remember, it's La Mesa, so they may not have the same urgency around housing that San Diego has.
I work about a 1.5 miles from that location. It's a very nice, very suburban area. And I think the values question feels really complex to me because I think you're right. It, in a lot of ways, is less diverse than where we are right now. And a big reason that Jeff and myself moved out to the La Mesa is that we felt completely priced out of downtown San Diego. And I think that's true of a lot of young families. And so I think for me, a question of staying is who is it is accessible to and who is it not? And it's always, unfortunately, it's always a hard choice of who we're making it accessible to.
And are there ways to think about that as part of the plan?
Yeah, I was thinking a lot about that question because for me, one of the attachments to this neighborhood is the role we play in the LGBTQ community. That feels really important. And then someone said, and that's in a purple neighborhood, right, where there are still LGBTQ people and they may not have the same experience of being welcomed. So is there a different ministry and a different role in our mission? So that's certainly something, I'm thinking about. I loved all the green space, so I just put out, I totally could see a community garden where we help feed our neighbors. I saw a parking lot that I was like, oh, this is like the dream for food pantry distribution, right? Like you go in one way, you could come out the other. So I guess, I don't have a strong sense of yes or no. I just have I see some possibilities. And I think it's worth entertaining those.
And then to you.
Okay, I had a question, but first just for orientation for some of you that basically it's north of the Costco in La Mesa and near Lake Murray, and I used to live in that neighborhood. So there will be a lot of college student housing in that area. So right there is going to be more college student housing, but nearby will be children. Now, my question was, you talked about either renting it or selling it after we refurbished here. What is the long-term market for churches as far as renting and as far as selling in the future?
That would absolutely, you want me to come to you, Craig, on that, or? Okay, can I come back to you so that we stay on this topic? But Sarah is next after Craig.
That's a very good question, and the committee talked with the developer, the real estate people about this, and they felt that the LDS church is going to want a church. They got other people who want the property, not just churches. There are some other churches looking at it, not just us. But there's a senior housing complex across the street that is full. They have no more capacity, and they would like to buy the property, but the LDS church is not likely to sell it to them, even if they give them more money, because the LDS church has made it clear they want to sell it to another church. But if we bought it and used it temporarily and wanted to sell it later, there'd be no reason why we would have it without our values. We wouldn't be abusing our values if we sold it to the senior complex for a lot more than we bought it for. So right now, they could get more money if they'd sell it to that project rather than a church. So there's a little bit of your answer. So
I'm going to go to Sarah and then.
She's been waiting for the long time.
Okay. Sarah, is it okay? Because I don't want to contradict Craig in public, but I will come back to you, Sarah, after Martha.
So just to address timing, I think, Marcia, you said that it makes more sense to make sure we know what we're doing here before we buy anything somewhere else. I kind of think, and maybe this isn't realistic, but if we did decide to move there even temporarily, it would make us sooner make a decision about what we're doing here. It would really push us to make that decision, and I think we need to make it soon.
Sarah and then Bella.
I had not thought about us having a shuttle. And if we did, and emblazoned on the side, First UU Church of San Diego, that is just a driving billboard. That would be wonderful.
With great tunes cranking. Blue Boat Home. It could be our Blue Boat Home. I love it. Handbells on the bus.
They go round and round. I'm also thinking about how do we get there, and I am really uncomfortable with a place that's not accessible by transit. The closest bus stop is about a 5-minute walk away. The line that serves it does not run on Sundays. During the week, it runs, I don't know quite how often, but it's not often. It is not convenient. If you're going to be walking from a trolley stop or a bus stop, it's going to be a good mile and a quarter. That is really too far. It's not good for people at night. It is a problem. So what kind of creative ideas can we come up with that will allow our members who need a non-driving option, and I would say that all of us need a non-driving option, and the easier it is, the better. What kind of, do we have a fund for the last mile Uber? Do we have a fund that allows, that people can draw on so that they can use transit 90% of the way there, and then that last stretch is accessible to them? I would really want to be able to think wildly out of the box on that, because my driving at night days are probably numbered. I'm sure that a lot of other people's are too. So, do you take public transit? I do. At night? Yes.
So we would need a last mile team to think outside the box. We have about 10 more minutes.
I took the tour. I had a very different experience, but I appreciated seeing the video because maybe what it really needed is to have a lot more light on it, because I felt that it was very compressed, it was tightening in, it was brick, it was dark, it looked so, and there was no light and there was no window, and I felt, I couldn't help but saying, well, the things I really enjoy here that are not there, and the biggest room was the basketball court. And I didn't like the idea of, you'd have to set up all these metal chairs in the basketball court to have, when you had your social hour or any other big things. I felt it was like a warren of little places, and I thought the rooms were too small for the areas that we have applied for, both RE and adult RE. And so it was sad. And the other thing I noticed, that can we really be the first UU Church of San Diego and be located in La Mesa? I would miss the diversity and so on, so that's my concern.
I will say that the Boston Patriots were actually in Medford before they became the New England Patriots, but yes.
Just a quick question. So the LDS folks want to sell to a church. Do we qualify as a church by their conditions?
We certainly do. But it's a good question. I don't know. I mean, maybe they'll choose a different group.
I really appreciate the fact that we're able to see the church again. And I think that time some of these questions should be answerable. If we really wanted to move there, I'm sure we could find ways to transport ourselves there. And I'm one of the people that would use that. I think this is, as you say, one of two offers, and the other one went in a couple of days, that we take it seriously. We don't have to pledge to go there, but really solve these questions down to the final degree. And then if we are interested in running there for the temporary time, that's available to us. It won't be if we don't take it seriously.
Thank you.
I have a question about distance. Currently, I'm one of the people that live in the farther north, Scripps Ranch. You can't, can you hear me now? Okay, now I can hear myself. Okay, I live in the far north in Scripps Ranch. I call it the far north. And so it would be farther for me to go at this time. And I'm glad you guys made a preference in statistics so you can see where people are living. So it'll be what it'll be. But with the another secondary question is, with this redevelopment, will we lose? We've discussed the parking lot before. Will we choose to put the tiny homes or whatever the other ideas are on it, and would we lose parking spaces? Currently, I drive to church with my own car.
We are not ready to give up parking for our cars. This is California. But how that's going to be achieved is very much under discussion.
Hi, I'm the sound guy. But I want to speak kind of just like, I worked in La Mesa for about 4 years. I ran a regular event there. And I will say La Mesa is like a great community that I think has a lot of people who are underserved. And I think that if we were to move there for a period of time, be it 2 or 3 years, and were to either come back here, I think that we would really want to make the most of engaging that community, and there would need to be like a serious reconsideration of how we do community engagement, because like we're in a great centrally located place now, and we still struggle, I think, to retain people. I think La Mesa is also another place where we could have a lot of impact there, and it would like necessarily force us to engage with that community differently, and we could take advantage of that. But then if we're going to ultimately end up back here, it's like, are we going to invest 3 years in developing a community out there only to come back here? Or are we going to then become a La Mesa congregation? Like those are, I mean, I'm excited by the prospect of being La Mesa because I love La Mesa. I also love Hillcrest. But I think regardless if we're going to be engaging with a new community or this community as the world changes, we just need to, that's kind of what's on the forefront of my mind all the time, is like, how do we get more young people to stick around?
And I'm hearing that as to be fully present wherever we are. That's what I take away from that, Zane.
So, yeah, I moved to La Mesa. People think that where we're considering is deep in La Mesa. It is not. 70th Street is the dividing line between San Diego and La Mesa, and this is maybe a few miles beyond 70th Street. So we're, if that's a consideration at all. And people have asked me, when I moved to La Mesa, they said, so we'll never see you again. And, and if you're driving, it isn't much of a drive at all. It's 10 minutes. It's not, so there you go.
So we need to wrap up. I really appreciate that, of course, this is not enough time, but we need to wrap up, and we're going to need to make a decision about next steps. But I just want to remind you that if we decide to move forward just to keep our hand in the game, that does not bind us to a decision, but it makes it possible for us to consider this. It sounds like there are pluses and minuses. I will say, as having lived in a suburban area, the View U Church was our oasis of liberal, progressive thought. And so there is something to be said to being that for folks. Steve, would you like to offer any wisdom or something from your heart? I just want to give the OSF team a chance to weigh in. Or
I'm just really happy that we've finally have a real concrete possibility. It's making us think more seriously about, this is real. We have to make a decision, and I'm glad to see everybody here.
And to Marcia's question about sequence, this is always tricky. I know that when you're looking to move, you look for a house and you try to sell your house, and you kind of have to do both at the same time. It's not like we have extra money where we could, do one thing and then do another. We would need the money from the developer to pay for this, but we might have an initial cash flow problem where we have to fundraise a bit in order to make a real offer. So there's going to be a lot of work and a lot of juggling, but if we decide to do it, I'm confident that we could do it. Craig, do you want to offer any words of wisdom?
Well, I think all the committee would agree that we don't know where we're going. Yeah. But the committee is working very hard. It's obvious to me that every one of us is doing what we can to keep faith with the commission you gave us, which is to explore everything, which is what we're doing now. And I just want to repeat what she just said, which is this is only giving us the chance to make a non-binding offer so that our board can make it possible for us to continue exploring the possibility, which very well, in the end, may be nothing. We may say nope, but the exercise we're doing is valuable no matter what. It's teaching us a lot. So nobody's making a decision, and clearly the committee doesn't have one to offer. We're still exploring.
Tony, is there anything from online before we part? Okay. We're not going to get to everyone. Do you have a final thought, Marge, that you want to share, or a question? Okay.
Does the developer who potentially has an offer for us know about this possible buying to push the offer sooner?
I don't know exactly how to respond to that. I mean, they are working in their own time. I don't know that this puts any more pressure on them necessarily. I mean, we're in conversation with them. They know that we're looking at options. I think they would love if we moved and they could just have the whole thing. I mean, this is such a choice parcel. So, they're being as conscientious as they could be, but I expect that we're going to be, I keep thinking any day now, so soon we should hear from them. And that'll give us an idea of what can we really expect to get for this property, and how much of it, would we give up in order to do that. So we're not going to get to everyone today, but I appreciate that so many of you have stayed for this, and that you've raised your concerns, and that there's been a respectful quality to this conversation, which I really appreciate. This is hard. It stirs up a lot of feelings. And, you know, we will get there together. That's what's important. And there's a lot of work to do, whatever choice we make. But what we're letting you know is that we want to continue to keep the options open, and that's what we're doing right now. So go in peace. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and you will be hearing more soon. Especially, you'll be hearing more possibilities of a time to go look at the space. Thank you.